Good morning. It's a Yorkshireman now living in Wales, and today, Matthew, I am going to look at covering the interview which the Welsh First Minister did on the BBC. I didn't really think it would be quite exciting, but it has actually got quite a lot in it. Now before I start, I'll just say good morning to Barkeep and Emily. Hopefully you're having a good day. So the first thing is we go through this interview, and as you can see I've put it up so we all know what we're talking about, is that the most interesting thing is she said it was getting to the point where if a member of the Senedd left a committee meeting to go to the toilet, the committee had too few members still present for the proceedings to be valid. So let me go back a bit. So what that's saying is that if I put my hands up and I say, can I go to the toilet, that meeting's not valid. So then what happens? Does it start again? Now of course straight away in my mind I'm thinking, so these extra members of the Senedd, they must be to cover toilet breaks. So there must be P members of the Senedd. And the system, what is going to work, is that as the Senedd member puts their hand up, can I go out to the toilet, they press a bell, the chairperson presses a bell, and the other member of the Senedd, who just basically waits in the corridor, maybe sits down on the corridor, gets ready to tag the other person going out, and then they go in and sit. They don't do anything, they just sit there to make sure there's still a quorum there, or there's enough members present. And then the same happens when they come in, so the other person, the other Senedd member comes back, knocks on the door, they tag each other and then they sit down, because that basically must be what happens. Now we could extend this process with the 36. When one of the members of the Senedd flies off to deal with climate change, now that in itself is ironical, isn't it? Or they fly off to meet people in different countries to talk about climate change whilst causing climate change, or they drive to a meeting to talk about climate change, i.e. they drive to the meeting, they don't walk, they don't do active travel, which is what they want us to do. Maybe is that point that person sits where they're sitting to make sure everything runs smoothly. That's all I can sort of think how the extra 36 are going to work. Now I do have some suggestions for this. One of them is you invent a rule which allows tea breaks to take place. So it becomes a formal procedure. Now, I can tell you this works, having been a member of a number of different committees, that actually works. And the chairperson says, right, we're going to have a bit of a tea break, and you could even formalise it, so people know when they're going to have a toilet break. Now, that might be radical, but I suggest you give it a go. Now, the other thing what you could do is, if there's an emergency, the chair could suspend the meeting temporarily while the person goes to the toilet and comes back in. Now also they could do this, so what happens if somebody has an emergency has to go out? Does everything then become void? Now if that's true, then I would expect to see a lot of committee meetings just stop dead, or do they get restarted again? Now it's really difficult to know about this actually, because I've never really heard it before, but as I say, I'm going to take it on face value and assume it's 100% true with these committee meetings. As I say, I've made some suggestions for you which in the past have worked well for me and other people. Now the other question is, quite often is in the background you have the people who are doing all the work, and that's doing the preparation for the meeting. Now if one of those goes out, say a minute taker or somebody else, or someone just, I don't know, on hand, does it stop them? Does that make it void, or is it only for the Senedd members? I'm not sure, because you're not really clear. So as I look through this, I'm reading it, it basically goes then, we move on to 20 mile an hour. And it says the changes led to significant backlash. Well, that's correct. Just under 500,000 people. A year later, still kicking off about it, not happy about it. In fact, there's a convoy soon, isn't there? So that'll really cheer you up. But then you go on to say, recent figures suggest suggest. The word suggest is there. Injuries on 20 to 30 mile an hour roads fell by a third. Well, I've just done a video on that. I've got a video, and I'm going to disagree, because according to me, the actual incidents have gone up. So, and I'm, you're suggesting it, I'm saying it. And then we go on to say, Ms Morgan told the podcast that 20 mile an hour had come up regularly during her summer listening exercise. Now, listening's a theme. And what happens is they always say, we're listening, we're listening, we're listening. Well, when this first came in, we had 500,000 people saying, we don't want it. You didn't listen. You still don't listen. In fact, the listening tactic comes from part of the European Union. And I've seen it many times, and many people have, is where they say to different countries, I have a vote on this, and the countries say, we don't want this, thanks. And then they rephrase it, and they say, well, have another go, because that's not the answer we want. That's literally what happens. And it's quite well evidenced. And this is the same. If you don't get the first answer, ask again. If you don't get the second answer you want, ask again. And you just carry on and you just carry on. Hopefully, your tactic is to wear us down. Well, clearly it's not going to happen. And then what you've done is you've said, well, local councils. Now, you passed the buck to the local councils. So let me look at this really clearly for you. You've given the councils more work, but without more funding. Now, shouldn't you have not done it the other way and said to the council, see what the actual response or what the need is in your area? But you didn't. You created legislation in about a single paragraph and kicked it down to the councils to sort out your mess. Now, because of that, councils are going to get inundated, which they should do, which will distract them from their core work, which is serving the local people who pay council tax and everything else. So this is part of your devolvement, and I've seen it before and I've read about it before, and it's just a tactic to make things very difficult. Now, what I don't understand is it only cost 1.1 million to do the infrastructure, yet you gave millions of pounds for this active travel. Now, I looked at some of the active travel and spending for different councils, and one of them, ironically, is to teach young people how to drive. Well, that's just pure madness, isn't it? According to you, you want active travel, yet a council spending it teaching people to drive. You need to get your stories straight, you really do. And then there's a comment by the political editor who basically says government overreach. And your reply is, I think you've got to bring people with you. Now, that's an important thing, I think. So that means the First Minister is not sure. Now, bearing in mind, the First Minister and the others basically always say, we are the voice of the people. We listen to you. We represent you. Well, no, you don't, because all you're saying is you're thinking about it. So that means you're not sure, which is not really a good sign. Now, I think most people know now we don't live in a democracy at all. What we live in basically is some sort of quasi-dictatorship, and that's my feeling on it all. So you're not sure about it, and then you go on to, if you impose too much without laying the groundwork. Well, you've just admitted you imposed it. Yet at the same time, you're saying you're listening, you want to ask us, but you've imposed it. So in there, that tells me exactly where you're coming from. Hey, I think you've got to bring the people with you, and then you're saying maybe we imposed too much. Well, I'm going to tell you did. You then go on to say, and these are mortal words, is we have got to have a reset. A reset is not an everyday word. I don't go out to my mates and say, I'll tell you what, today we're going to have a reset. I don't get up in the morning and say I'm going to have a reset. A reset generates and comes from the World Economic Forum. And that's Klaus Schwab, whatever his name is, who actually says the Great Reset. And there's books now using the word the Great Reset. That word is not a good word. What it means is you want to impose something on us. You're resetting it, but you're not taking us with us. So we have to be careful about that. You also play it down by using the amount of people who are unhappy, just saying, oh, you're just grumbling in the background. Again, you're playing with words again. You know, oh, it's a grumble. No, you need to listen, because you then leap and you then go on to say, literally, about these about reform. And you say, no, we're taking it seriously. Well, if you were taking it seriously, and when I say reform, I mean Reform UK, the political party, you basically, the councils and everybody, need to take it more seriously, because you're not. Because I guarantee you, more people are going to vote reform than what anybody thinks. That's my personal take on it. So, let me then sort of look at the practical side of it. So, I've put the slide up now, and these are my 5 members of the Senedd for Mid Wales. So, as you can see, we've got 5, but one of them is now Welsh First Minister. The second one, Joyce Watson, and she's actually a Senedd Commissioner. So, both of these have now got other jobs. Now, the First Minister actually was a Health Minister, so actually she had another job anyway. Now, I've been active in writing to them, and one of the latest things I wrote to was about this road, the A493 Forest Hill. And as you can see, there it is. It's been like that for literally 3 or 4 years. Okay, so a member of our local community wrote saying we need something doing. Once I saw that, I thought, right, that person is correct. So I wrote to my 5 members of the Senedd. So how many do you think replied back? Let me think now. So it was just one, Jane Dodds. Jane Dodds replied back. Politically, we have different viewpoints, but at least she alone recognises she's here to serve the community. The others clearly don't, because now they just ignore me. So if you live in Mid Wales, you're not getting any service. What it also tells me is we don't need 36 more, because according to my actual living example, real life, we can do with less. It's as simple as that. Now, I have now got another secret theory which goes back to the toilet break. When I send an email to the other 4 who don't do anything, clearly, what they do is they say to their staff, or they remind themselves, wait on, we've got the toilet break, get out now. So they see my name pop up, and what they do is they nip out, go to the toilet, come back and say, that email is now void. So basically they don't have to do anything. So they can just say, well, we've had a toilet break, it's void, so we'll start again. Right, I wanted to cover this because I think it's quite important, but also it just sort of tells us all what we're dealing with. So, hopefully you've enjoyed that. You might have learnt something, or you might have learnt a different viewpoint of something. Thank you for watching. Tick, subscribe, leave a comment. Thank you. Have a good day.